Good evening. It's been a rainy day today, so it might have been an extra long day for you because it was an extra long day here. Yes, it was, because you couldn't send the kids outside. So I'm guessing you probably didn't go outside today, but maybe you did some things inside. We talked about finding time for God and for Jesus on Sunday, so hopefully you did that today. You found time to read your Bible or pray or to read some stories. So we have been talking on Wednesday nights about the Easter story. And last week we talked about the Last Supper. Do you remember my Lego set with my Last Supper? I don't have as many today, but I have. This is going to be our rooster because it's as close as I can find to a rooster. But he's got a little, might be a little rooster. And this, it's some coins. Wonder what these two things have to do with each other. And if you already know, and some of you probably already do, then you're already yelling out the answer, let everybody else catch up. Okay? So, tonight we're going to talk about making mistakes. Raise your hand if you have ever made a mistake. Raise your hands. Raise your hand. Yeah, we all make mistakes, don't we? It happens. Now, there are little mistakes, and there are medium-sized mistakes, and there are big mistakes, and then there are super huge mistakes. And I have a feeling that you've probably made one of each of those. We all do. It happens. But the reason that I want to talk about the different levels of mistakes is because little mistakes are a little bit easier to fix, aren't they? And medium-sized, a little bit harder. And sometimes really, really big mistakes, sometimes we can't fix those. We can try, but we can't fix those. So I wrote 4 stories today. And I want you to, at the end of it, when you listen to the story, I want you to try to decide if it was a big mistake or a middle mistake or a super huge mistake. What do you think? Okay, you ready? Here's our first story. Oh, there we go. Sally Ann was out of breath. She had forgotten her notebook in the classroom and had to run quickly before the bus drove off without her. When she climbed the steps, Miss Reynolds, the bus driver, closed the hinge doors, and Sally Ann grabbed the only empty seat. When the bus pulled up at Sally Ann's stop, she got out and waited a minute for her best friend Colleen to exit the bus as well. Colleen's face was twisted, and she stomped on past Sally Ann without saying a word. Sally Ann knew her friend was disappointed because she had promised to save her a seat on the bus ride home so they could talk about their upcoming playdate on Saturday. So Sally Ann was late to the bus, so she didn't have a chance to save a seat for her best friend Colleen. What do you think that kind of mistake was? Was that a tiny mistake, medium-sized mistake, big mistake, or maybe not even a mistake at all? What do you think it was? Okay. Because I think, it could go different ways. All right, so here's the next one. The poll results showed it was a close race. In fact, Henry had only defeated Mary by 1 point. Mary had wanted to be the 5th grade president so much. She had asked all of her friends to vote for her, and they assured her that they would. At the lunch table, Mary's friends gathered around to comfort her and tell her they were sorry for her loss and that she ran a good campaign. Nathan, however, ate his lunch in silence. It was hard to look at Mary and see how sad she was when he knew he had voted for Henry, even though he had promised Mary he would vote for her. After all, Henry had promised him that he could come over and swim in his pool any time, and that sounded like a whole lot of fun. So even though he had promised to vote for her, Nathan didn't. He voted for the other person, and she didn't win. And it may not have been his fault, but he didn't do what he had promised to do. So do you think that was a little mistake? A big mistake? Medium size? What do you think? Or maybe no mistake at all? What do you think it was? It could be a lot of different things, and Mary might see that mistake as a different mistake than Nathan might. Okay, let's go to the next one. Dabney, where are the markers? James asked his friend. What markers? Dabney replied. The ones you promised to bring so we could make the poster for the book contest. Dabney had forgotten all about the markers. He had even forgotten about the contest, and he felt terrible when he saw James's very disappointed face. How could he forget something that he knew James was so excited about? So James had asked Dabney to bring his markers so that they could work on a poster for a contest. And when James got to school, he totally forgot about it. And he felt really bad about it. Do you think that was a little mistake? A medium-sized mistake? Big mistake? Or no mistake at all? What do you think? I bet it's different if you were Dabney, and it's different if you were James. All right, let's go to the last one. Brady and Greg were best friends. They had been in school together since kindergarten. They always played together and spent time at each other's houses all the time. Brady was athletic. He loved sports. He was on several after-school teams and was usually one of the best players on each team. Greg wasn't athletic, but he was super good at school. Greg always cheered his best friend on at his games, and when his mom would take him to watch from the stands. And Brady always cheered Greg on when he would have math competitions. That afternoon, Brady, as usual, was made team captain in gym class along with Michael. Brady and Michael took turns picking people to be on their teams until there were 2 boys left, Greg and Thornton. It was Brady's pick, and Greg smiled, but only for a second when he heard his best friend say, "Thornton, I'll take Thornton." So they're best friends, and it's time. I have a feeling that a lot of you, especially my older elementary school kids, have been in that situation where you're in gym class or maybe at recess, and you've got 2 team captains, and they're picking who they want to be on the team. And maybe you are picked last, or maybe you're not picked by your good friend, and you don't understand. And we don't know why Brady didn't pick Greg. We can guess that maybe because he wasn't athletic, or maybe they wouldn't win. So we don't really know why they did, but that's what happened. So do you think that was a little mistake? A medium-sized mistake? A big mistake? Or maybe no mistake at all? What do you think? I think that one's a hard one. I think that's a big one that maybe we might all understand. So tonight, I want you to think about those, and we'll continue talking about them. But tonight we're going to talk about a mistake in the Bible, I guess. Not a grammar mistake, not a story mistake, but a mistake that someone made. And I think that after I read this story, I think you're going to be able to, all of you are probably going to say the same thing about the mistake. We're going to talk about one of Jesus' disciples named Judas. Judas went to the leaders. He asked, "How much will you pay me if I help you capture Jesus?" They said, 30 pieces of silver. So Judas took the money and made a plan. Jesus had gone to his favorite garden to pray. The disciples went along. Jesus prayed, "Father, if it is your will, I am ready to give my life so that all the people who trust in me will be saved from their sins." Soon, Judas arrived with some soldiers. Peter wanted to protect Jesus, but Jesus says, "No, I must allow this to happen." All the disciples ran away, and the soldiers arrested Jesus. They took Jesus to the leaders. The leaders said, "You say that you are the Son of God. We do not believe you." The soldiers took charge of Jesus. They made him carry a big wooden cross. They took him to a place called the Skull, Golgotha, where they nailed Jesus to the cross, and Jesus died on the cross. Now, the Easter story is a sad story. Now we know that the happy ending is going to come, but that part is especially sad. So not only do we know that Jesus died, think about how did he get to the cross? What happened? Okay, they had a dinner, remember? And then he went to the garden to pray, and then we just talked about it. Who made the soldiers come? Judas made the soldiers come. He said, "I'll give you Jesus. What will you give me?" Do you remember what they were going to give him? 30 pieces of silver. So they paid him money to show them which one was Jesus. Remember, Jesus was making quite a fuss. He was preaching in the temples, and people were saying, "No, that's not right. You can't do that." And what it doesn't say in this story was how he showed the soldiers which one was Jesus. And he said, "The one whom I kiss on the cheek." And so that is what he did in the Bible. He kissed him on the cheek, and the soldiers came in, and they took him. So would you say that Judas made a little mistake, a medium-sized mistake, or a big mistake? I think that one might be kind of easy, because Judas was his friend. He was one of the disciples. Remember the 12? And they were all friends, and they went around, and they were preaching the good news, and Jesus was healing people, and he was doing all sorts of miracles, and Judas was right there. He saw all of it. It makes you wonder why. Why did he turn on him? Why did he say, I think I'll turn this man in that I love dearly for money? Would you do that to a friend? Would you tell on a friend in an important situation? That's tricky, isn't it? I know all your moms are sitting going, "Wait a minute, Miss Barbara," because we don't keep bad secrets, do we? If someone's in trouble, we speak up. Was Jesus in trouble? Did he need Judas to go get the soldiers to help him because he was hurt or he was injured or something like that? That's not what he did. He went and got the soldiers so they could arrest him. And that's kind of a big deal. It's not kind of a big, that is a big deal. So I think we kind of agree on what kind of mistake that is. Now, this is a different mistake that happened during all of this time. I'd hold it up for you, but it's kind of small print, so I'm just going to read it. At that time, Peter was sitting in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You were with Jesus, that man from Galilee." But Peter said that he was never with Jesus. He said this to all the people there. Peter said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Then he left the courtyard. At the gate, another girl saw him. She said to the people there, This man was with the Jesus Nazareth." Again, Peter said that he was never with Jesus. Peter said, "I swear that I don't know this man Jesus." A short time later, some people standing there went to Peter. They said, "We know you were one of the men who were following Jesus. We know this because of the way you talk." Then Peter began to curse. He said, "May a curse fall on me if I'm not telling the truth. I don't know the man." After Peter said this, a rooster crowed. Then he remembered what Jesus had told him. "Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." Then Peter went outside and cried painfully. So Peter, after Jesus has been arrested and he's being put on trial, people are saying, "You know him. You were one of his friends." Peter said, No, not me. Wasn't him." And then somebody else said, "Yeah, you were with Jesus. You were walking around and you were there with the miracles and all the things." And "I don't know what you're talking about," Peter says. And finally, on the 3rd time, Peter does something that even you guys are not supposed to do. And not only did he say that he didn't know Jesus, what did he do? He said bad words, and then he said, "I curse you, and if I know this man," what did it say? "Something's going to happen to me." We don't do that, do we? So what do you think? So what Peter did, was that a little mistake, a middle mistake, or a big mistake? He did it 3 times. Now, in both stories, do you think Jesus knew what was going to happen with Judas? Do you think Jesus knew what was going to happen with Peter? Yes, it says so in the Bible, and it says before it happens, he says, "One of you will betray me." Remember we talked about that? And he knew that Judas was going to betray him, and he did. And he told Peter, "You will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows the next morning." He says, No, I won't. And he did. Jesus knew these were happening. So these are kind of things, they are mistakes that we make. Now, what is the great news about mistakes? Who forgives us? Jesus forgives us of all of our mistakes. And if we're really good friends with somebody, or we love somebody, do we forgive them when they make a mistake to us? I would say so. And would you forgive a friend or somebody who loves you if they made a mistake and they said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to"? You think you forgive them? Forgiveness is really what helps the world go around, because if we stayed mad at each other all the time, that wouldn't be any fun, and there would be no joy. We wouldn't have that. And I think right now, with all of us kind of cooped up in our houses, it is an even bigger and more important time to forgive each other. So I really wanted you to hear about how Judas betrayed Jesus. And in a way, Peter betrayed Jesus too, didn't he? Betrayal is a big, big word. And it's a bigger word than mistake. But turning your back on somebody, betraying someone, you may have heard that word before. It's a big word, but that's what they did. So I have trivia questions because you guys love some trivia questions. So let's see if there are some other betrayals from the Bible that you can remember. Are you ready? Here we go. This mother helped her younger son convince her blind husband that the son was in fact his older brother in order to trick the family inheritance for his behalf. Ooh, well, we don't want the son's name, the mom's name. So this is a super bonus question. Anybody remember it? Rebecca. Her name was Rebecca. All right, let's go for round 2. Hopefully you were listening. This disciple denied knowing Jesus 3 times before the morning of the crucifixion came. Who was it? We just talked about it 3 times. Peter. Good job. All right, round 3. This king pretended to love David, but instead was gathering armies to fight him. Do you remember who that was? We've talked about this before. It was the king before David became king. Starts with an S. Saul. I bet some of you guys got that. All right, next round. Oops. Oh, I just gave away the answer, didn't I? Pretend you didn't see that. Okay. The brothers of this young man were so jealous of him that they sold him into slavery and then told their father that he had been eaten by an animal. I wonder who that was. Anybody know? Starts with a J. Joseph. You remember Joseph and his coat, and they threw him into the pit? I'm going to try to be careful this time. There we go. This king, so this is a tricky one, this king loved Daniel. But when the king's attendants convinced him that no one but the king should be worshipped, he agreed and threw Daniel into the lion's den. So we know about Daniel, and we know the angel was there with him, and we know about the lions. Do you remember the king's name? Think for a second. Think. King Darius. Do you remember that from Bible school? All right, next round. This wife offered her husband a piece of fruit from the forbidden tree, knowing that God had said it was to be left untouched. Who was it? It was a woman, and she gave a piece of fruit to her husband. You remember who that was? Eve. That was kind of an easy one, wasn't it? But she betrayed God, and so did Adam in the end, because he took a bite. Okay, next. This woman cut off a man's hair that she claimed to love and gave him to his enemies. This one might be a tricky one. We haven't talked about this on Wednesday nights. Any guesses for who this might be that cut off hair? Is it ringing a bell? Delilah. One of these days we'll have to get more into the story of Samson and Delilah so that you can hear that. So, how did you do on your quizzes? Did anybody get them all? I'm very proud of you. So I think that we have covered what I wanted to cover. We talked about betrayal, and we talked about mistakes, and we talked about forgiveness. That's a really big deal. Okay, so the story's going to continue next week because we're sad right now, aren't we? He was taken away. He was arrested. He was put on trial, and then he was sentenced to death. So we know that the good news is coming, and we're going to talk about that more next week. But I wanted to talk to you about betrayal and about mistakes that we make. And we should always do what when we make a mistake? We need to ask for forgiveness. And what else do you do? Not only do we ask for forgiveness, what else would you do? You might want to ask, how can we make this right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. What can I do? Okay? It's always good to say, I'm sorry, but then see if you can make it right. If you forgot to do something, maybe you go do it. Or you see what it is that person might need to make up what you forgot, or what you didn't do, or maybe what you did that you shouldn't have done. Okay, so we love crafts, don't we? Miss Barbara loves crafts. And I was trying to think, what kind of crafts can we make? I got to stretch, so just stay right there, Gracie. Stretch. Okay, so I have two options for you, because I don't know what kind of craft supplies that you have at home. But if you have a paper plate, and I actually didn't have a paper plate, I had a styrofoam plate, so it was a little bit trickier to fold, but I got him there. So what is this? This is my rooster. He says, cock-a-doodle-doo, cock-a-doodle-doo. I just took some construction paper and some printer paper from the printer and kind of glued him a cute little tail and a comb there at the top and a beak. And he might be fun to make so that you can remember that people make mistakes and we can remember the parts of the Bible. Remember, he denied Christ how many times? 3 times before the rooster crowed. Or if you've got brown paper, or you could always use like a brown paper bag and cut it out. And so I folded it in half when I cut my shape and then left this part sealed. And when you open it up, it's got 30 pieces of silver. Now I sat there and cut them all out of construction paper, but what you could do is if you have a silver crayon, and I know there's silver crayons in those big 32 packs, you could color 30. And that's a great way for counting. I know I have a lot of younger ones, and that would be a good way for you to count to 30 by putting them in there. And then I just put a cute little piece of construction. You could put some rope or a string or something like that on there if you wanted to, but that might be fun. So I'm hoping that you will remember the stories, and I'm hoping that you will come back and watch next week as we finish up the Easter story and we talk about the good news to come. And then I hope that you're home, and I hope that you're well, and I hope that you are being kind to each other, and that you're asking forgiveness because I have no doubt that we're starting to get on each other's nerves a little bit, aren't we? Be kind and be forgiving and ask for forgiveness and give forgiveness, okay? All right. Have a good night, guys.